Alrighty. We are live. How are we all? Hello, hello, hello. Let's get some people in the chat. Hello, hello. Alrighty, let's get into it. It is going to be a wet and rainy and soggy Austrian Grand Prix day. You got an ad? That is your fault for not having Twitch Prime. Last two, or just subbing to the channel, which you can now do. Last two, depends. Last to 5th, last to 7th. Who knows? Last to 20. Okay. Alrighty. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jamie Perry, but you can call me Helix. I'm your main commentator for Formula 2, but it is exciting times all around. It is going to be a rainy one, it is going to be a cloudy one, it is going to be a stormy one, and it is going to be an exciting one. I've nicknamed this place the Hellfire of Rainy Tracks, because I don't know, it just sounded cool. Either way, we are not far from getting going, but I want to go through a couple of things. First, to dive bomb the Ferraris into the Shadow Realm. We'll have to wait and see, because Ferrari seem very confident that they can get a 1-2, or at least get a really good result. So we'll be keeping an eye out with Ferrari of Chesney and Gabby. But obviously we need to keep out for other names. Obviously Jono, he's performed really well overall. Goya, thank you for the tier 1 subscription. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our first ever subscriber to the channel. Wow. I do not believe that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our first ever tier 1. Haha. We have our first ever tier 1 subscriber. I did not expect that. You have just wasted your money, Goya. How do you feel now? Alrighty, going over a couple of things. We have some qualifying bans. So, I don't know if Ebar is driving, but he's one of them. Lewis and Ozaswaza. Kookaburra and Constella all have qualifying bans. And then there is a man who has a race ban, and that is Sam Ross. So, someone who will not be participating overall. Death Star Racing, a different racing league, coming in and saying, back the AlphaTauri, come back. So yeah, that is some of the bans that are taking place. It is a rainy Austrian Grand Prix here today. Chaos, potentially. Good racing, maybe. We will have to see. Alright, let's get some info on the board. Alrighty. I have brought back Just Connix, the bloke you liked. Okay. Cool. Alrighty. So, we head to the pit lane. Kookaburra has left the session for some reason that we will never know. The drivers now getting their strategies ready for this very wet and cold and slummy day here in Austria, here at the Red Bull Ring. So it's up to the drivers to get the correct strategy, get the correct tyre selection, which I think it's probably going to be full wets. I think it's going to dry up throughout the race though, so that's going to be an interesting one for strategy. And Windex bottle cap talking about it now in the Twitch stream. Alright, so the Ferrari of Chesney and the Alfa Romeo of Logan both coming out of the pit lane. Obviously, with the Ferrari of Chesney, both him and Gabby have been talking about a very good result for Ferrari, a 1-2 on multiple occasions using a custom image they use with Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. And other occasions they haven't been as confident, but still with a decent chance of a good result. So it's going to be interesting how Ferrari take this race and how confident they actually are going into it. So, yeah. Majority of drivers now coming out of the pit lane onto an outlap. We have the Alpine of KA7M, or just K1. We'll keep it simple. So that is K1 in the Alpine. Alfa Romeo. Oh, I'm guessing that's Scotty Boy just... Oi! You know what? Scotty Boy's hit the wall. He's had a spin. He's hit the fence. And K1 has now got a 5-place grid penalty. So that's happened all of a sudden. Unlucky between the Alfa Romeo and the Alpine. Not how you want to start your qualifying session, that's for sure. Alrighty, let's go to Logan in the Alfa Romeo, the first man to come over the timing line and to start his fast lap here around the soaking wet Austrian Red Bull ring. Around the first corner, does lose the rear a little bit, but for the most part keeps it pretty clean and pretty stable. Going through the gears, through turn 2, which that small kink that everyone just sees as not even an existent turn. Purple, obviously, because he's the first man to start his fast lap. Let's go over to Gabby, who is just behind the Haas, getting a really good slipstream. Marco, the teammate to the Haas, who's getting a good slipstream, just coming through turn 3 now. And Gabby has to go wide there, so the Ferrari needs to come up with a different racing line to make sure that he doesn't get in the way of Edo Eater. Chesney continuing through the second sector at the moment, going into the 50-meter mark, now braking with a bit of precaution. Obviously, you don't want to be too happy with either throttle, brakes and the gas pedals, because otherwise it could be spinning or locking up in much more ease than in dry conditions. Into the second last corner, into the straight, which then connects up to the final corner. The Ferrari trying to carry up some speed here. Chesney, P11, what can he set? It's a 1:16.0, and he sets it on pole by an 8/10 margin, and the Ferrari does set it alight. So what about his teammate, Gabby? What can the Ferrari teammate do here? Chesney with a 1:15.4, decent from the McLaren. The Ferrari can only go P6 with a 1:19.2, but still a solid little time at this current stage. Nano hasn't set a lap, but it's looking like he'll come around the final corner. What can the Williams do? It's a 1:17.6, and he'll sneak it up into P8. K1 with a P7 result at the moment with a 1:17.2. Marco P5 with a 1:16.1, and now everyone's starting to put in some benchmark times for themselves to finally settle into a position. Alpine of IRT Kia coming around the second last corner now, trying to keep it in track limits. He's doing a pretty good job. Into the final corner, right over the curb, trying to gain as much time as possible without losing out at the same time. Across the timing line, it's only P11 for the Alpine driver at this current stage. Kookaburra, who, if I'm not wrong, has a qualifying ban, will not be able to participate, so it's almost like he's doing outlaps and then back into the pit lane for the Red Bull driver at this current stage. Neptune, I don't think I've seen him on the grid before, unless it's just a username change. I'm not 100% sure of the driver, but right now currently in P18, could be a reserve, could be new to the league, not 100% sure. Scotty Boy in the Alfa Romeo, in P20, currently going through the third sector, if I'm not wrong. No, Scotty Boy doesn't have a quali ban, so just out on his outlap, trying to get ready for his first fast lap of the session. Into the last and final corner, trying to keep it clean. Does a good job on the outlap, making sure not to invalidate the next lap ahead of him as well. So now the Alfa Romeo now can begin his fast lap of the session. So through the first corner, pretty solid at the moment. Yellow flag as the AlphaTauri lets the Alfa Romeo by. Scotty Boy through turn 2, which is really just a kink for the straight, into turn 3 around the 100-meter braking zone, especially seeing that you have to brake earlier because of these wet conditions. Not too bad from Scotty Boy at the moment, keeping it pretty clean and pretty conservative on the racing line for this current stage. Scotty Boy is going to continue it down with the lower elevation into the 50-meter braking mark, trying to keep it close to the apex, and the corner where it seems to be Red Bull suicide against the Mercedes. Either way, enough about real life. The Alfa Romeo currently going through more lower elevation as he continues through to the second sector, about to finalize it now. Purple in the second sector, and the Alfa Romeo is starting to look like a bit of a strong competitor here, and a bit of a faster lap. Does get a bit out of shape there, but for the most part, the Alfa Romeo keeping it pretty clean. Through the second last corner, doesn't go wide, keeps it nice and tight around the last corner. Once again, not getting out of shape there across the timing line. It's going to be a 1:16.1, and though he had purple in the second sector, it's not good enough for provisional pole. It's only good for P7. Ozza Swazza out of absolute thin air, the Aston Martin setting a lap alight with a 1:15.4 and 3-lap-old wet tyres. So it's not even on fresh compounds, still using some older wet compounds. It kind of gives you an idea of how little degradation these tires get. Just the durability and the lack of degradation lead to still being able to set faster and faster laps, even though they're quite old compared to what they started off with. What about the McLaren of Chesney? Can he improve on his original time that he set into the 1:16s? He's going to stay in P2, and it is not an improvement from where he originally began. What about Jono? Is he looking to improve? Jono has been a bit of an outstanding driver in this I guess second half of the season. Purple in the second sector, Gabby in the Ferrari with a 1:15.1 and takes provisional pole, even with 4-lap-old wet tyres. So that kind of gives you an idea on the lack of degradation. What a lap by the Ferrari driver, 0.3 quicker than the Aston Martin. What can the AlphaTauri do? Well, he's going to take away that provisional pole from the Ferrari, make it a 1:14.9 after he got purple in the second and third, and that is, I mean, what an exceptional lap there, improving by another 0.2 on the Ferrari. But that Ferrari of Gabby really showing how competitive he is, especially the improvement he's had since the last couple of races. So good to see from the Ferrari crew, from the Ferrari drivers. Chesney on 4-lap-old wet compounds, even though the tyres are old, it doesn't matter anyway. He's coming into the pit lane finally. Constella, not on a fast lap, at least maybe. It's always a bit confusing when they go into the third sector, about to build up. Either way, Constella about to come over the timing line to begin their fast lap. Currently a 1:15.6. What can the Mercedes do going into the first corner? Not too bad. Oh, it was not too bad before he lost it on the curb, went wide, and it's pretty much ruined his lap immediately, and that is unfortunate for the Mercedes driver on that occasion. Where else can we see a bit of racing action, a bit of decent lap times? Here is the Haas of Marco Angelo. It's a bit out of shape on the gear changing, but overall solid getaway from the first turn. Into the second turn, that little kink. Purple in the first sector, so the Haas, honestly, even with the struggle with the gears, not doing too bad at the moment. Through the third corner, which is really just the second corner because of the kink in the straight. 8th gear, pedal to the metal, full throttle, down and lower elevation as he continues it through. The Haas trying to keep it as stable as possible in these horrible conditions, and it doesn't seem he's able to keep it that stable. Loses the rear a little bit, but for the most part keeps it on the track at least. Now continuing with the lower elevation, Marco Angelo does not go purple in the second, but he is trying to improve. That is the main thing for the Haas driver at this current stage. He's going to continue down into the second last corner. A bit more acceleration going into the last. What can the Haas driver set across the line? Marco Angelo currently P8. He's going to stay in P8, and it's not going to be any improvement, and it is still a 1:16.143 for the Haas driver. I swear I saw a little bit of an improvement. I'm guessing that was from K1, who's now moved up into P5 in the Alpine, maybe looking to improve even more, even on the 3-lap-old wet compound. So really good job from the top drivers, who even on, I mean, just longer lasting tyres and I guess longer lapped tyres, it's still lasting a while and still getting faster lap time. So good to see the lack of degradation. It means that strategy could be very different. it might mean that there's no boxing at all, but we'll have to wait for the weather forecast, because it does look like it might dry up earlier on than we may expect. I'm not 100% sure. Continuing through, obviously we've just had a look at Marco and Chesney currently out on an out lap. Let's go move down a bit more where we can see Nepital currently in the Williams going through the second sector into the low elevation, and it is Red Bull suicide corner here at the Red Bull Ring. Williams makes it through without any issues, so not too bad at this current stage. He's currently in P11 with a 1:16.2, but can he improve on those 2-lap-old wet compounds? It doesn't look purple. It isn't real big of an improvement. It seems to be an 8/10 downgrade at the moment. Doesn't seem to be any improvement at all. Yellow flag. It seems just to let a driver by. No, it's to let him come into the pit lane. So Nepital not going to be finishing his lap, instead coming into the pit lane to end his run at this current stage. Nano in his Williams, in his teammate in crime for Nepital. Nano currently going through the first sector, trying to gain as much speed as possible, pedal to the metal. It's a 2/10 improvement, and it's purple in the first sector. So Nano, not too bad at this current stage. Does lose the rear on the exit of turn 3, but for the most part, keeps it pretty stable and keeps it pretty clean at the moment. Down the lower elevation, into the sweeping corner, trying to keep it as clean as possible through Red Bull suicide corner. Williams is going to continue it through into the pretty much the end of sector 2 into the lower elevation, trying to keep it as stable as possible. Not purple in the second, but it was purple in the third, and it's a 1.2 second improvement, so it's looking pretty good for the Williams driver at this current stage. What can he do with such little time left in this lap? One corner done. Hit the last corner, approaching across the apex, now finished. Nano up to the line. What can the Williams driver get? It's a 1:16.3. It's a 1.3 second improvement, but unfortunately it is only P12, and he is still behind his teammate on that occasion. Having a look at some other drivers currently on a fast lap. Unfortunately, Constella will have to back out of it for this one. Went red and will have to wait for his next opportunity when he next crosses over the timing line. Chesney going slow on this occasion. What about Gabby in the Ferrari? Looked to have a bit of pace on his first run. Maybe on this second run it can be Gabby's chance once again. Currently in Sector 2, 30 seconds in. What can the Ferrari driver do? Into the lower elevation, into the 100-meter braking zone, through Red Bull suicide corner, loses the rear there on the exit. Is he going to continue it through? No, the brake has been applied and he has backed out of it. Maybe looking to help out his teammate here, who Chesney obviously is just behind, or maybe it's a strategic call. I'm not 100% sure. It seems Gabby just overall backing out of it though. What about Jono? He seems to be on a fast lap at the moment. 1 lap old wet compound tyres, and I'm guessing his goal and his strategy is, now that he's leading in provisional pole, is just to continue to stretch that provisional pole gap. My apologies, my braces are making my talking a bit of a pain in the ass. AlphaTauri going through the second last corner, getting nice and close to the apex, now continuing through, letting the car go, letting the car run through these horrible conditions, up to the line. What can Jono set? It's a 1:14.6, and it is an improvement. It's a decent improvement, and he has really started to set a margin for P2 and for the rest of the field here in Formula 2 at the moment. Ozaswaza, doesn't Ozaswaza have a quali ban? I swear from my notes Ozaswaza has a quali ban. ART Luck says, mashallah, no braces are MVP. Trust me, I cannot wait for that day. But for now, this is what it is. Anyway, Ozaswaza invalidates his lap, currently in P3 with a 1:15.4, unlucky for the Aston Martin driver on that occasion. Gabby, unfortunately, had to back out of it last lap. Doesn't seem to be pushing this lap either, so, and it seems to be the same for Jono, who doesn't seem to be overly pushing either. Who else can we see who's currently trying to push for a new fast lap? 7/10 up, Lewis on this occasion in the mini sectors, but 2.1 seconds down going into the first sector, so probably no improvement for Lewis on this run. Nepital in the Williams, currently ahead of his teammate by 2 positions. Currently going through sector 2, doesn't seem to be pushing too hard, but it could just be the wet conditions making getting on the throttle just that little bit harder and making it so you have to really take care of the car, making sure it is as stable as possible through the exits of the corner. Through the final corner, goes very much over it, but doesn't invalidate for the most part. Williams across the line, it's a 116.3. He stays P11 on that occasion. What about Marco and the Haas? Currently going through the third sector, currently into the final corner. Constella retires. For now, he'll be in P7. It's going to be interesting if he will stay in P7. Marco can't improve. It's still a 116.1 for the Haas driver. Or maybe that was an outlap, and you can all see it clearly for anyone who will argue against me. That clearly said there was no outlap next to his name, so there is proof of it. Either way, Marco Angelo currently now starting his fast lap, continuing through into sector 2 as he completes turn 3 of this tricky wet conditions around the Red Bull Ring. Doing a pretty good job at the moment. Let's continue through. We can see Nepital, who's unfortunately invalidated his lap. What about K1 in the Alpine? What's he up to right now? Well, he's swerving a bit, but for the most part trying to set another fast lap, faster than before into the final corner. Going over the apex, not as much as some other drivers across the line. It is a 115.7. He does not improve. He's 2/10 down, and unfortunately that is not good enough for the Alpine on that occasion. What about Chesney? 500ths up at the moment through sector 2, and the McLaren is improving, not by much, but is improving. Now it's a 700th improvement, and now, though it is close margins, no! The McLaren in such close margins on his final run could have done it, but invalidates, and that is over. He will not be on provisional pole. This time round, neither would Ozaswaza. Chesney still has an opportunity, and you know what? The Ferrari is starting to speed ahead. Gabby just behind, and you know what? This might be a battle between the two Ferraris. Chesney in P3, looking to be beaten by Gabby. Ferrari through the final corner. What can Chesney do? This is going to be very tight up to the timing line. Chesney sticks it on P3. Gabby comes into the pit lane, and neither Ferrari will be able to improve to provisional pole or Chesney up into P2. K1 comes around the final corner, looks to have a couple of intents of improvement. Is a 115.5. He stays P6. He's across the checkered flag. What about Marco Angelo? He seems to be 7/10 down in this mini sector at the moment. ART Luck says now the dance begins. Haas comes into the pit lane. No improvement for the driver on this occasion, and I think that is qualifying over, and it is another pole position for the man in the AlphaTauri, the man carrying the team with Lewis down in P12. It is Jono with a 114.6 on 4-lap old wet tyres, who will come across the line to finish on pole. Don't take that out of context, you weirdos. I have to close my Twitch app because it's not loading the chat. And ART Lux has answered my thing correctly. Sorry, just letting some things come through chat at this current stage. But yeah, that is it. That is qualifying completed and finished for this current stage. There you go. here is your lineup for qualifying. So obviously the AlphaTauri of Jono sets it on pole once again with a 1:14.6, solid lap compared to the Ferrari of Gabby, who seemed to be improving, but maybe that was my telemetry fucking up there. But either way, he ends with a 1:15.1 with a 5/10 gap with his teammate Chesney with a 1:15.2, 6/10 down, and almost a 1/10 gap between the two Ferraris. So maybe Ferrari weren't kidding about their pace. Maybe Ferrari have shown up looking to battle and looking to be on top to take maximum constructors points. We'll have to wait and see how the race unfolds, but for now it's looking pretty exciting in these tough wet conditions here around Austria. If ART Lux says, if anybody takes me out, I'm gifting subs. Very interesting. So you're saying by you potentially dying, virtually, I mean, you will give money. Now, I need to remember there is no formation lap. We get straight into it. So this is it, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone's lined up on the grid. The pit crew have done their T-poses. Here we go, 5 seconds before we head to the lights. This is it. No time to mess around. 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. The lights go out. Oh, no, it's glitched once again every single time. 5 red lights. The lights go out and it's pedal to the metal, and there's 4 drivers who's jumped the queue off the start, and that is not what you wanted off the very beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, Gabby up into P1 but with a drive-through penalty, and so the Ferrari will have to come into the pit lane at some point. Safety car has already come out. Banana down to P19, and there's a huge collision at the back of the pack. What has happened? Ladies and gentlemen, already things unfolding here in Austria off the start. Multiple drivers falling down. IRT, Kia, I think Smoke Wisp, Banana. Actually, no, Banana was down there, and so was OXL4. But drivers getting out of positions, all the damage, and that has caused the safety car in under a corner. Crazy things already unfolding here at the Red Bull Ring, and before racing could actually begin, before overtaking could actually commence, safety car has come out, and Gabby, as well as Scotty Boy, as well as ART Lux, as well as Banana in the Mercedes, will have to come into the pit lane at some point in the very near future to serve their grid penalty. Oh my god, look at the traffic here in Austria, here in these wet conditions. What is happening in this chaotic mashup? Everyone getting extremely close to each other, the delta mixing up, matching up, and people almost colliding with each other. What is happening? 5-second penalties for multiple drivers, drive-through penalties for a lot of them as well. OXL4, and I think that's Scotty Boy, and I think that's Lux as well, both coming into the pit lane. What is happening? And from what Robert is saying, apparently someone had suddenly stopped, causing this massive pile-up in the midfield. Absolute chaos. And there's still a bunch of pile-ups happening as they continue to sort themselves out for the delta and for the line that will form behind safety car. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not how I expected commentary to go at here at Austria. Here to begin with, obviously Scotty Boy and ART Lux about to come out of the pit lane now, but what has unfolded in the first 5 seconds of this race getting underway? My days, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it seems drivers actually... Okay, if someone had a moment or massively outpaces their delta, they suddenly stop, which causes a piles up. Absolute scenes. I mean, I agree with that. I have no words to describe that. Also, I apologize for my voice. It is not great at the moment. I know I said that, Josh. I said Gabby got a drive-through. I'm staying on top of it this time. Don't you worry about it, big man. You worry about being the owner of House of Racing. I'm on top of it this time, Joshua. Don't you worry about it. Don't you worry about it, big man. And Jono with a 5-second penalty because of collisions with Constella. That must have happened at the lower, yeah, you can see between P10 and P9. Unfortunate for Jono, who had worked so hard to get pole position, to fall down to P10 and to now pick up a 5-second penalty as well. This has not gone well for the AlphaTauri. So let's get into a bit more detail about everything that's unfolded so far here in Austria, here for the first 3 laps of the Grand Prix, because this could be a busy day for the FIA, as Robert has said in the Twitch stream. So let's go through some stuff here. So Gabby with the drive-through penalty, Marco with a 5-second time penalty, Jono P10, he's now picked up a 5-second time penalty. Obviously your pole sitter, now equal to his teammate in P11, who is Lewis. Drive-through penalty for IRT Kia, Scotty Boy and ART Lux all have drive-throughs at this current stage. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we thought that this race wasn't chaotic, here is a clean and easy way of putting a not so clean and dirty race at the moment. Just Conic says, riveting race here. Well, yeah, I mean, it isn't the most riveting, but I'll tell you what, there has been some interesting scenes taking place at this current stage. So let's go through position changes that have taken place. So Gabby moves up to 1 position, but obviously he got a drive-through penalty, just let go of the throttle at the clutch just a little too early, and that meant that Gabby unfortunately got a drive-through penalty and moved up into P1, but it will be a temporary change for the time being. Chesney, his teammate, didn't get a drive-through and can still have a good opportunity for Ferrari to pick up the win at the moment, or at least pick up a podium at this current stage. Apologies for the black box. Continue it forward, Swazza in P3 also made a move up, and pretty much everyone from P8 up to P1 all made a move up. I mean, K1 though, great job from the Alpine, making 3 positions up. Constella unfortunately makes 1 position down. Nano with a 5-second penalty because of collision with the Haas of Edo, so unfortunate for the Williams on that occasion. But yeah, the Mercedes of Constella moving 1 position down. Lewis once again one of the drivers who make a single position up. Logan making 3 positions up, so good job by the Alfa Romeo. Nano and Edo still going equal. Safety car is in this lap, goes the FIA. Smoke Wisp 3 positions up, and I mean, unfortunate for Jono, who started on pole and 19 positions down. There's Constella, and Constella has spun on safety car coming in this lap, and he'll fall down 11 positions, and Jono will move up 1 position, and it is unfortunate for the Mercedes. How has he managed that? So, let's go back 2 tires. Gabby will lead us from P1. Will the Ferrari come into the pit lane to serve his drive-through? No, he won't. He's going to pull the trigger. Right about now, he's trying to really get away from the rest of the pack. And you know what? He's done a good job. What about the rest of the midfield? What about the rest of the drivers also trying to get a good getaway from the rest of the pack? What seems, Nano's coming into the pit, Constella's coming into the pits, and it seems some of the drivers who had a drive-through starting to clean up their act and starting to get that all swept away from their record. ART Lux making a move on Scotty Boy. What about the Red Bull of Kookaburra on Chesney? Down the inside, solid move, but the McLaren's going to have a more outside line, solid in the wet conditions, and not too bad from Chesney, keeping it nice and clean, and the McLaren back into P4. Solid racing happening in the midfield at the moment. What about between the Haas and Alpine of Marco and K1? Well, K1's currently up into P6, but can Marco get him back? It seems to be job done for the Alpine, but what about the Haas? Can the Haas get any closer to the Alpine at this current stage? It seems he'll have to back out of it. Oh, but there's a slip in the rear between the Alpine. Gives a better opportunity to the Haas. ART Lux has made a mistake, and it seems Scotty Boy has also lost the rear a little bit, but it is ART Lux in the Red Bull who's made a much bigger mistake compared to Scotty Boy, and unfortunately has fallen down to P18 on 2-lap old wet condition tires, and also, if I'm not wrong, has a drive-through, at least a 5-second penalty. There's Gabby serving his drive-through penalty. Obviously won't be boxing for new tyres, just making sure he can get rid of that large time penalty if he doesn't come into the pits. And yeah, unfortunate scenes by the Ferrari, who obviously started P2, went up to P1, but by going up into P1 he got a drive through and down into P15. Gabby goes. Nano trying to get into the pit lane very slowly. Scotty Boy now making his way out of the pit lane, and majority of the drivers who had a 5-second penalty or had a drive through starting to service. So throughout all the chaos, out of everything that's now happened, Aston Martin of Ozaswaza now up on top into P1. Chesney, the Ferrari driver, still has an opportunity to give the success that Ferrari wanted, but the McLaren of Chesney carrying so much more speed. Kookabar is carrying more speed, and I realize Chesney's using a bot, so that's why he's actually losing pace compared to other drivers, just not having as much grip, as AI are just a bit more aggressive compared to maybe more conservative lines that normal drivers are using. Chesney picks up a 1:17.355 as the fastest lap. Nano's race completely destroyed by other drivers, says Robert in the Twitch chat. Maybe Marco up in the P5, and yeah, Chesney now with his AI is going to continue to fall down positions and allows other drivers to get up. ART Lux with a 5-second penalty. If it wasn't even bad enough, the man in P16 obviously speeding in the pit lane. That will not go down with the Red Bull team. That will not go down with Christian Horner as he starts to make his way out of the pit lane. OXL4, will he be able to get an undercut? No, probably not. Already up to top speed for ART Lux, just not close enough on that occasion. Nano down into P20, 29 seconds down on OXL4, who's currently in P19, and this has not been Williams' race. Into the pit lane once again, and this may be a retirement. We'll have to keep watching to see how this unfolds for the Williams. We'll continue it through though with Ozaswaza, who's now been able to create a 1.4 second gap to the McLaren in P2, but right now Chesney needs to do a bit more work. It just needs to really stretch as much pace as he possibly can get to get the overtake stick on Ozaswaza. There's a yellow flag though, and it seems to be the AlphaTauri of Lewis. He's hit the barrier or something. He's going to come into the pit lane, probably to switch a front wing of some sort. Lewis going to continue to fall down positions as he eventually comes into the pit lane. Unfortunate for the AlphaTauri, who does retire on that occasion. Nano 56 seconds down on the rest of the pack. Unfortunate on this occasion. Yellow flag sector 3, but who eventually will turn 2 green flags. The Alfa Romeo of Scotty Boy trying to get a slipstream on the Alpine, seeming to be a bit more... Why are people retiring? Probably just not getting the result they wanted, probably knowing the fact that they might not be able to catch up to the pack again. I'm not 100% sure. You'll have to interview them after the race has been completed. But continuing through, Ida currently fighting away with Jono. Jono seems to have gotten away though. It seems Jono made the overtake in the last couple of corners, and the Haas seems to be struggling compared to the AlphaTauri, who yeah is long gone. And here comes the Ferrari of Gabby, and Gabby is definitely not a bot, and Gabby unfortunately fell down positions because of a drive through. There's Jono coming into the pit lane quite early and maybe seeking out intermediate condition tires. It does seem to be drying up a little bit, so it could be time for drier tires. We knew that it was going to be drier. There's K1 on Inters, there's ART Lux coming onto Inters, there's Jono, there's Edo. They're all coming onto intermediate tires, and ladies and gentlemen, 9 laps into this race and strategies are already being decided here at the Red Bull Ring. Ladies and gentlemen, this, if it wasn't already exciting enough with the scenes and action that was taking place, people were starting to switch strategies here on lap 9, and it's pretty clear. You can visually see there is less rain out on track, and we'll have to see how the intermediate people track along compared to the people on wets, but it seems to be working pretty well. 8.3 seconds already down to 8.1, and it definitely seems to be intermediate conditions here around the Red Bull Ring officially at this current time. Ozaswaza currently in P1. And there is the P1 Aston Martin coming into the pit lane. What about Chesney coming into the pit lane? The Red Bull of Kookaburra will sneak into P1. He's won in Imola. He won in Portugal. But either way, Kookaburra at the moment needs to consider the fact that intermediate tyres are the better tyres at this current stage. Ozaswaza, Chesney, majority of drivers starting to come into the pit lane. The Ferrari of Gabby loses it, trying to regain it. He won't lose any positions, he won't lose too much lap time, but the Ferrari, as well as his teammate, as well as Chesney, still on inters at this current time, and it's just not going to work out if they stay on this compound for much longer. Kookaburra leads with a 5.5 second gap to Ferrari of Chesney, but you can clearly see by the track temps, you can clearly see by the degradation and the speed that other drivers have, it is time for intermediate conditions here at the Red Bull Ring. Here is the Mercedes of Banana, P13, getting very close to the Haas, currently a 7/10 gap. ART Lux with a 1:14.034. He actually was probably the first person to come into the pit lane. He's currently P18, but to be fair, this could be very beneficial later down the line, or maybe not. Obviously now I'm seeing there's an 8-second gap, so maybe not for the Red Bull driver, but to be fair, majority of these gaps have been annihilated because of this ultra change. Oh, and I swear my life flashed before my eyes right there, ladies and gentlemen. I swear I just saw the Alpine driver hit the McLaren, but maybe not, because the Alpine and McLaren are completely fine. Wow, here is some more, it seems to be wet drivers coming out onto intermediate compounds, and Chesney in the Ferrari now leads the race with a 10-second gap, 11-second gap. But is this the correct decision by Ferrari? Are they trying to wait it out to maybe dry conditions, as Robert said in the Twitch chat, trying to go that very long distance, so maybe they get a benefit over strategy? Constella, P17, now coming up onto intermediate conditions, and that means the only person still running who is on wet tyres is Chesney in the Ferrari. Gabby once again falls down to P10, obviously was in that position after the drive-through penalty was served, but it's going to be interesting if Gabby can fight through the pack, because he did say, and it looks like he has the pace to fight through this. I mean, we'll have to wait and see what his race pace is like compared to his quali pace. Robert says, I reckon a 10-second is enough of a gap. Oh, maybe. But you have to consider the fact that they still need a box, and boxing is around 20 seconds long, and you can see K1 up into P1, Chesney P2, Kookaburra P3, Ozaswaza P4, Jono P5, Nepatul P6, P7 is the Ferrari of Chesney, and he'll find his way just out of that position. But the Haas Marco will be on slightly warmer tyres, even in wetter conditions, will be on warmer tyres compared to Chesney. But can Chesney get away from the Haas before any move is even considered from Marco? Apologies if my voice sounds dead, or if I sound dehydrated, or if I sound slightly croaky. Once again, I am very sick at the moment, but I am putting in the effort because I love this server. Okay, the AlphaTauri of Jono nearly going wheel to wheel with the Aston Martin of Ozaswaza, but Jono backs out of it. Obviously, Jono started from pole. He's done a really good job to back up, but the Aston Martin loses his rear. Down to P5 goes Ozaswaza, and there's the move sticking for the AlphaTauri of Jono without any issue at all. Solid racing, solid move, and I mean just clean overtaking from the AlphaTauri. So his next hunter, the next target on the AlphaTauri's mind, your pole sitter looking for revenge for the positions that he lost. Jono has got a slipstream on the Red Bull. He's using a lot of his ERS compared to a lot of the other drivers, around the 30% range the other drivers have at the moment. but Jono only in the 15% range, looking to really gain on the drivers. But you know what? Jono is very close to Kookaburra. He is incredibly close. ERS being used, same with Slipstream. He's going to potentially go around the outside here. The AlphaTauri is going to keep it just there at the moment. Maybe a more conservative outside line, but at the moment, that's not going to pay off. Obviously, it is still intermediate conditions, and it still isn't dry enough to go for crazy moves. But for the time being, Jono is doing really good on pace, and he's been able to really stick with the Red Bull of Kookaburra, who is a 2-time winner compared to Jono, who's only a 1-time winner. But statistics don't mean everything here in House of Racing. K1, for the first time here in Formula 2, leads a race. Chesney in P2 in the McLaren, 9/10 of a gap in, but obviously no DRS, meaning it is still up to the drivers with ERS and Slipstream to get close enough to make a move stick. Banana in the Mercedes, currently in P12, picks up a 5-second time penalty because of collision. Was that 3 seconds? We'll have a quick look. It was indeed 3 seconds, so my apologies for that, but we continue to learn, and mistakes will be fixed. Gabby currently in P10, outside line on the Alfa Romeo. P9, a bit of a squeeze on the Alfa Romeo, a bit of contact as well on the exit, but for the most part it's pretty clean. The Ferrari makes the move stick, and Gabby up into P9. Solid move from the Scuderia on that occasion. What about Marco? Well, he's in a bit of a midfield here. I mean, midfield between the two Ferraris. It's a Ferrari sandwich between a Ferrari engine-supplied car. And Marco losing the rear on that occasion. IRT Kia seems to be fighting away with ART Lux, and ART Lux for the second time in this race loses his rear, has a spin, he's able to keep going, but once again yellow flag is brought out and he's down to P18. Red Bull and ART Lux in their home Grand Prix, at least one of their home Grand Prix. Scotty Boy picking up a 3-second time penalty. It is not going the way of Red Bull here at the Red Bull Ring, that is for sure. Nano also picking up a 3-second time penalty because of track limits. We'll have a quick look at how these drivers are currently ticking along. It seems Nano just trying to cruise at his own pace, living his own race at the moment. I mean, a big distance away from the rest of the pack, 59 seconds, nearly 1 minute behind P18, and this has definitely not gone Nano's way for, I mean, multiple times throughout this season now, and Nano needs to pick up the pace here in Formula 2. He got dropped from Formula 1 in Aston Martin, remember last season, not last year, my apologies, but I guess season 1 was throughout last year as well, so, but yeah. Chesney currently 7/10 off K1. He has gained on the Dubai man in the last couple of laps, so this is starting to heat up here between P1 and P2. Continuing it through, Jono only has a 2/10 gap between him and Kookaburra. No penalties applied between the two drivers, so this could get very interesting. A much better exit compared to the AlphaTauri. Logan picks up a 3-second time penalty, and the AlphaTauri is dangerously close now. Is he going to make a move up into turn 3? The inside line, he is going to go for the move on the apex. Is he going to make it stick? It's going to be a bit of a squeeze. Can the Red Bull get a better benefit? No, he can't, and Jono up into the podium positions, and it isn't even going to be Red Bull who can represent the podium at the Red Bull Ring, but it's the sister team of AlphaTauri who could get the job done. But Red Bull could come back here. Kookaburra could come back. He still has to fight hard with Jono, but it seems the move has been officially finished and done for, and that is the AlphaTauri up into podium positions once again on these intermediate conditions, on these intermediate tires. Another driver picking up a 3-second time penalty throughout these last couple of corners. K1 has once again extended to 8/10. Remember, K1 used to be a co-commentator, used to commentate up in the commentary box as they drive past me, and obviously he's now out on track fighting away, and he could pick up a win here if strategy goes his way and no safety car can screw him over. This could be the Alpine's day, but let's not screw him over. Let him focus, let him do his thing, let him drive his race. The McLaren in Chesney still has a big opportunity to get past the Alpine, and this is going to be an exciting battle in the next 10-15 laps, definitely to keep an eye out for. As we continue through, we can see Chesney with an 8/10 gap to Nepital in the Williams. ART Lux with a 3-second time penalty, and the Red Bull of ART Lux, even with a 2/10 gap to Smoke Wisp. I mean, will it even matter? These don't mean points. It is petty racing, but to be fair, it could mean a whole lot more to these drivers. Inside line for the Red Bull, he backs out of it, and it could just be teasing with each other, knowing how far back they are from the rest of the pack, and especially from points. Here we go, ART Lux through turn 2. He's going to continue to fight away up into turn 3, into the braking zone. Down the inside goes the Red Bull, nearly hits the rear of the McLaren, backs out of it. Jono with a 1:13.9, and that is quicker than the time he set in qualifying. What is happening? And you know what that means? It means we're getting even closer to drier conditions. Obviously on intermediate tires, it means that they will be quicker than wet tires, which is the tires we were on for qualifying. But look at how quickly Jono has caught up to the pack. 7/10 to Chesney, and Chesney's 1.1 down on K1. So if K1, who could make his debut win here, who has first of all made his debut leading opportunity, may be under fire because of this incredible pace that the AlphaTauri of Jono has been showing throughout the entire 2 sessions of qualifying and race so far. If we continue through, we can see Chesney with a 6/10, 7/10 gap to Nepital and the Williams. This has been happening for a couple of laps, getting closer and then falling back a couple of laps, falling back a couple of tenths. And it just seems that the Ferrari won't be close enough to make a move. Even with the 40% ERS, he still needs to consider how he saves it and how he uses it to make sure he can get the most out of that power, that extra energy that Scuderia can create. What about down the pack a bit more? Ito with a 9/10 gap to Banana in the Mercedes. Doesn't seem anything can happen at the moment, but it does feel like clouds are starting to clear up a bit more, not by a huge margin. It's still raining, and it's still rain droplets, and it's still intermediate conditions, but at the same time, you still have to consider that it is probably going to dry up coming up to nearly the end of the race. Remember how the forecast was shown. Here's the AlphaTauri, much closer to the McLaren of Chesney and the Alpine of K1, and this has been the closest they've been since the very beginning. All 3 of them neck and neck. K1 picks up a 3-second time penalty, and the race leader, feeling the pressure, goes wide on the white line and potentially taken out of contention for a race win. The Alpine has a lot to do on his hands because the McLaren's caught up, but then look at the AlphaTauri. Look how close all 3 drivers are. Will Jono get past both of them with the pace he's shown in the pace he's shown around the Red Bull ring? Will the McLaren of Chesney be able to hold off Jono and keep, I mean, he could stay where he is right now, finish in these positions and be all good, but Jono doesn't want that. He wants that P2 position. He's gonna make it count. Outside line, wheel to wheel. Chesney Riz this time, not the same Chesney that's fighting away with the AlphaTauri. Either way, the AlphaTauri of Jono around the outside, and it's an easy move. Stuck by Jono, no issues at all, and he doesn't even need to make the move on K1 if he wants to win this race. Obviously that 3-second time penalty not going to be any benefit at all for the Alpine. Chesney nearly 1 second down, P3 at the moment. Unfortunate for the McLaren, who just doesn't seem to have any pace compared to that AlphaTauri or Alpine of K1. So Kookaburra in P4, he's not really had any great opportunity to catch up to the field, but to be fair, he's only 1.1 seconds down, now into that 1 second range, but we'll have to keep watching, keep seeing how the strategy unfolds as the clouds seem to be clearing up more and more as laps go by. Lap 20 of 36 at this current stage. Gabby, 1.8 seconds down on the Williams of Nepital, but then there's a 9/10 gap between his teammate behind in P8, so that could be heating up in the next couple of laps. I swear I can see something on my little indicator through my track map. A bit of fighting happening between the Red Bull and Alpine, at least something that's going to be happening very, very soon in the next couple of corners. ART Lux, it has not been his race this time round. The Alpine really struggling through these corners, losing the rear. ART Lux get a much better getaway. And I'm getting some random comment I don't care about. Red Bull P16 fighting with P17, and I need to quickly go up to P1 and P2 because K1 and Jono fighting away very hard, but Jono makes the move seemingly without any issues at all. K1 obviously just didn't have the pace that Jono had, and neither did Chesney against Jono, and Jono just on a completely different level compared to Alpine and McLaren. Thank you. And yeah, honestly, it is crazy the pace that we are seeing from the AlphaTauri driver here at the Red Bull Ring. Insane. Let's continue to move down where we can see once again IRC Kia and ART Lux fighting away. Let's continue to move up through more of the pack as we continue to see this fighting away. But Kookaburra, you know what? Kookaburra has gained on the podium positions at the moment, and the Red Bull could be sizing up a move on potentially the McLaren, potentially even the Alpine of K1. It isn't like he's going to be staying where he is, especially with that 3-second time penalty. So the Red Bull of Kookaburra has a lot of opportunities to get by. The Red Bull into the lower elevation corner. Red Bull suicide, but on this occasion he doesn't lose his rear to any Mercedes that's going to sneak out of nowhere. Either way, in P4 at the moment, but he has been able to get a really decent margin to the McLaren, gaining over these last couple of laps. Can he continue to gain, maybe make a move in the next maybe 5 laps? To be fair, even that Aston Martin of Ozaswaza is starting to catch up, and a bit of a train at the front of the pack is starting to build. Jono's going to start to build outwards though, and if he can get no penalty, which seems to be the case, he's going to go over to the checkered flag to win. But still have to consider that it's looking even more dry. You can tell that the clouds are really starting to come out, and that means anything can happen. Apologies for the black lack of hydration has made me talking even harder. But either way, Gabby in the Ferrari seeming to get a decent slipstream of Nepital. Obviously this gap has continued to be there for the last couple of laps now, but it seems a much better corner exit compared to the Williams, and the Ferrari won't be behind the Williams for that much longer. Outside line, all the ERS that he can possibly use, he's going to stay on the outside. Remember how deadly outside is compared to the inside here at Austria. Apologies for that. We're back commentating again. The Ferrari still fighting away with the Williams of Nepital, just trying to gain some type of time at the moment. Nothing that he can gain at this current stage. The Ferrari of Gabby just seeming to be out of reach at the moment. 4/10 though, so it could happen in these next couple of corners. All it takes for the Ferrari is a good exit on one of the corners, a decent slipstream, and down the inside, and the Ferrari has made the move stick. Let's move up where we can see a very close battle obviously happening at the front of the pack. There's a yellow flag. I think that's the Mercedes of Banana in P11. No, it's his teammate Constella just coming through there, I think scraping the gravel, coming through. Logan's gonna come into the pit lane, maybe thinking that dry tires might be the best. We'll have to keep watching here. And to be fair, through these 3 drivers, P5, P4 and P3 of Chesney, Kookaburra and Ozaswaza, the gaps are close. And to be fair, K1 I mean, at a bit of a disadvantage here. Jono's pulling away with a 2.1 second gap, nearly 2.2 seconds, and K1 left in the dust, also starting to be caught up by the McLaren of Chesney. P4 obviously is Kookaburra in the Red Bull with a 7/10 gap, but then 3/10 behind, you don't want to look behind, is the Aston Martin of Ozaswaza. Obviously a nice bit of rhyming there for your lovely ears to hear here in the commentary box as they drive past here at the podium area. Aston Martin of Ozaswaza would be looking for some type of move. Still, he has a penalty that you still have to consider. Nepatul picks up a 3-second time penalty as well. Most of the back markers and the lower midfield has a penalty. Banana picks up another penalty, so unfortunate for the Mercedes on that occasion again. But to be fair, Kookaburra has really started to shorten that gap on the McLaren, but then it just seems on corner exits the Red Bull just misses out, maybe too much straight line speed that Honda engine is taking up against the corner. And yeah, just not good enough compared to the McLaren and Alpine, who seem to be very close to each other, but once again, just not close enough, not tight enough, not just that tenth or two closer to make a move stick, to go down the inside, to go around the outside for an overtake to be made. So the front of this pack still incredibly tight throughout this entire section. Gabby currently in P6, the Ferrari of Chesney in P9, and Ferrari's hopes of getting a P1 and 2 result currently not looking so good. They've continued to say it will happen. It will happen. They are confident that a decent result would take place, and it isn't like midfield results are bad. And to be fair, Gabby with a 113.6 on those 15 lap compound tires. So to be fair, Gabby's still setting some rapid lap times, but to be fair, it's not even Gabby's fault. Got a drive-through penalty at the start of the race, just couldn't go the way of the Ferrari, and unfortunately sticks it in P6 at the moment with a 6-second gap to Ozaswaza currently in P5. But to be fair, if Gabby can get close enough to Ozaswaza, then maybe he can make moves to get onto the podium, because look how close the front of the pack is, and lots of penalties starting to be applied in the lower area of the field. Ido in the Haas, the first person to come onto soft compounds. And I want to have a quick look here. Just go on board with the Haas. Oh, he locks up going into the pit exit. I want to have a quick look at the Haas. And I swear to God, I'm seeing raindrops still on the screen there. So maybe it's a bit too early for the Haas driver to come onto soft compounds, but he's made the choice to come on it now. Out of context, that's not so good, but either way, the Haas driver not looking so fly on those dry compounds at this current stage, and maybe just a little too early to make the decision count. But either way, he's made that decision. It's too late to change it, and that is what it is. Either way, K1 currently yellow flag sector 2. It's the Haas. And it's the Haas of Ido, and it is the soft compound runner, and it is not going well for Ido. It definitely seems is way too early for dry compounds, but it is a decent note for all the drivers. 10-second time penalty for exceeding track limits on multiple occasions. OXL4 now comes onto soft compounds, but it's still raining. It's still damp conditions. It could stop raining, but it might not be dry enough for soft compounds or for dry compounds at this current stage. And even if it was dry enough, why would you go on softs if you'd have to race for 10 laps? 9 laps of action. The Red Bull's going to hit the rear of the Alfa Romeo. He's kept it clean overall, but ART Lux getting a bit out of shape there, a bit dirty, and accidentally hitting one of the rear tires of the Alfa Romeo, nearly spinning him. Yellow flag. That's Ozaswaza coming into the pit lane. Seems yellow flag pretty much cleaned up immediately. 72 comments at the moment. Way too early for dries, and I definitely agree here. It seems the rain is still pouring out here. It's still damp conditions. Soft compounds aren't the right decision. There's now 3 drivers out on softs, and they know it's back to 2 drivers as someone's made the better decision to come back in. And obviously listening to their race engineers, now there's Banana coming into onto medium compounds. What are these drivers doing? It's way too early for soft compounds or mediums or for dry compounds overall. Have a look at the mist, have a look at the rain, have a look at the damn conditions. This is still intermediates. This is not ready for dry compounds at this current stage. It's still damp and more wet in other areas of the track. This is not dry conditions. Robert says I could win this race on softs. You have to wait and see. Jono finally will retake fastest lap with a 1:13.3, so really fast, really solid, and really clean from the AlphaTauri at the moment. 5.4 second gap compared to K1, who could have made his debut win if he didn't pick up the 3-second time penalty and just had a bit more pace in hand. Kookaburra currently in P3, the Red Bull, 5 tenths down on the Alpine. He did make the move against Chesney to get into those podium positions. Constella 1:13.4. My apologies on that. I guess I never saw it, but I'm not going to see everything, so I get blamed for that a lot, but please understand, as a commentator, I'm not going to see every single tiny detail. Gabby is a quality merchant. Oh, definitely. I mean, to sneak it into P2, and unfortunately just down to P5 at the moment. Yeah, just not close enough. Purple in the second sector, to be fair though, and Gabby could be trying to take away that fastest lap that Jono had just made. Currently lap 29 of 36. Chesney Riz now online on PlayStation, but P8 currently. I'm guessing that's his bot driving, and it is indeed. So Chesney having some internet issues, and yes, Gabby with a 1:12.9. What type of lap time? Aston Martin OXL4 hits the barrier, and is that a safety car? Is that a virtual safety car? And I think it's a VSC. Will it move to full safety car? I think it's just going to be a VSC at the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, out of thin air, we have seen Aston Martin hit the barrier, and it is virtual safety car conditions. And look at K1. Oh, that is a back marker. Never mind. K1 6.7 seconds down, but at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, this has spiced things up a little bit. It's going to bring packs closer together. It's not going to bring the whole field up to a safety car conditioned area, but it is going to bring drivers and gaps into a shorter stint of time, into a shorter area of space, and this could be a great opportunity for Gabby in the Ferrari if he can gain just that little bit more time. Currently 5-second gap. He's going to sneak it into a more 4-second gap, 3-second time penalty for the Ferrari of Gabby. Green flag running as we get underway, and look how many penalties are now on the board. Let's have a look here at the penalties that we are currently seeing. A lot of 6 seconds, a couple 9 seconds and 8 seconds, and even 1 10-second for Ida. So penalties really stacking up at the moment. Obviously K1 has a 3-second time penalty, but so does Kookaburra. So it's still a really good opportunity for Chesney to still back P2 at the moment. So Chesney might not even need to make the overtake on the two drivers, just stay close enough where they're fighting, and he can be close enough. Ida now on 13 seconds of time penalties with some type of issue. There's an Aston Martin off the track. I think that's Ozaswaza this time. So is the teammate of OXL4 this time, losing the front wing but not out of the race, and it could have been much more worse on that occasion, but the Aston Martin not going to cause any virtual safety car or safety car. 5-second time penalty for Ida. Now DNFing from the race. Ozaswaza comes into the pit lane to DNF, so it's no points for Aston Martin here at Austria. Smoke Wisp with 14 seconds worth of penalties down in P16. Jono, no issue at all, 112.7. K1 now makes it 6 seconds, and it gives a better advantage to Kookaburra if he can get it by, but it's still a much better opportunity for Chesney to just keep it clean, and he'll have both of them without needing to make a single overtake. 32 of 36 laps, 4 laps remaining, including this one. Jono currently in P1, purple in the first, and he's looking to improve even more on the current time. Let's go back to tyres at the moment. Banana sticking to dry compound, and you know what? I'll tell you what, it is pretty much dry conditions. There is still the odd drip and drop there, so I wouldn't say it is fully time for soft compounds, which obviously would be the right decision with 4 laps remaining, but it is getting very close to dry conditions, maybe just not close enough for any second pit stop for any more strategies, and the Alpine of IRT Kia is going to lose his rear by a huge amount. That's going to see him get blue flagged by his teammate K1. It's going to see Red Bull of Kookaburra and Chesney follow through. Let's go to Chesney and K1, who Jono with a 112.7, improving even further than what Gabby did with that 112.9. Let's go to Gabby and see if he can improve. Doesn't look like he will, but he did improve by 600ths personally, so I mean still good for Ferrari. But either way, this area at the top of the field has still been fighting away. Let's go down to the midfield where you can see Scotty Boy with an 8/10 gap to the Red Bull of ART Kia. They've also been fighting away for a little bit now, but it's just definitely not close enough for a move to be made. And obviously we've had no DRS for the entire race, but even with no DRS, even with no huge aerodynamic slipstream gain, it seems it's still very competitive throughout a lot of the drivers. And this is Formula 2. This is what House of Racing is all about. Slightly chaotic, slightly over the top, but racing. Fine, good old racing at its best, and that is what you love to see here at Austria, here at the Red Bull Ring. Weird camera angle there. Obviously, Kookaburra looking to make the move on K1 if he wants to stick in that podium area, because here's the thing, if he stays in P3, he'll stay, if I'm not wrong, here's how it will work. At this current stage, K1 has 6 seconds worth of penalties. Gabby improves, by the way, takes fastest lap back from Jono, so not to miss out on that as well. Ferrari doing a good job at the moment. Either way, here's how it will work. Gabby, K1 will fall out of podium and go into P4. Kookaburra will stay in P3 and Chesney will go up into P2 at this current time with penalties. It's a bit of a confusing system and how they'll finish. 2 laps remaining in this race and it is still so close. Nano with a 3-second time penalty with a 10-second gap, obviously gaining a bit of time with safety cars and virtual safety cars. Constella R6 with a 112.4 and Constella obviously P10. Scotty Boy with a 112.1. IRT Kia with a 3-second time penalty, obviously in P13 at the moment on 24-lap old intermediate tires. Gabby with a 3-second time penalty, and penalties coming in late and fast, and fastest laps constantly switching at the moment. What is happening? It is the penultimate lap. Jono with a 6.7 second gap. The Red Bull of Kookaburra 4/10 down on the Alpine, and if he wants a better chance at being on this podium, having a better gap, he needs to make this move on the Alpine. I don't think it will really be affected, but maybe for reputation wise it could help him out here at the Red Bull Ring, here on home soil for the team. Chesney in the McLaren, currently in P4. He will, at this stage, at this current gap, with the current penalties applied, he will take P2. He has done everything he needed to do. He doesn't even need to make the overtake. He just needs to stay in contention with the Red Bull and the Alpine, and he'll be completely fine. Gabby starting to gain, but it's looking like it might be just a little too late. Gabby might do one final push, get one final lap of fast purple areas. We'll have to wait and see. We come around the final corner to start lap 36 of 36. It is the final lap of the Austrian Grand Prix here for Formula 2, here in House of Racing. And out of all the fighting, out of everything that's happened, out of all the chaos and stuff that happened on lap 1 with all the drive-through penalties, Jono goes purple in the first sector, and even if he sets fastest lap, if he doesn't, he deserves this win. He fell down so many positions. We thought it may have been over for the AlphaTauri, but he fought, he climbed back, he went up into P1, and the AlphaTauri nailed it out of the park. No penalties, no issues, just straight pace and clean driving. He could be a future F1 driver. He could be a future Formula 2 world champion. But for right now, it's one step closer for the AlphaTauri driver. 1.11.8 from Constella with fastest lap. But it won't matter because in P1, in the AlphaTauri, around the final corner, the AlphaTauri's gonna see the checkered flag. And it is Jono who wins the Austrian Grand Prix here at the Red Bull Ring. Jono picks up fastest lap with a 1:11.8, just sneaking it behind. Chesney does take P2, Kookaburra down to P3, and K1 just missing out in P4, but it's a solid result by the Alpine. P5 is Gabby, P6 is Nepitul, and everyone's starting to come across the checkered flag now. Still, it seems everyone's starting to separate, starting to have a much bigger gap now. And it seems this is how it will end, with all the penalties starting to conclude and starting to finalize here. Constella getting a much better getaway. Logan with a 1.11.8, stealing it away from Jono. Can anyone else get a faster lap time? This seems to be the thing that's happening. Can Stella go any quicker? 5-second time penalty. I think he'll finish in P10, and I think at the very end someone snuck in a 1.10.9 there. But either way, after everything is said and done, after everything has been yelled about, after everything has been talked about and commentated about, after my voice has been pretty much obliterated, ladies and gentlemen, we head to the podium where we can see the AlphaTauri. He won in France, he wins in Austria, and he got the job done. What a race overall. The chaos, the just everything that unfolded. What a race. That was surely something, but definitely deserved for the AlphaTauri, spraying the champagne over his team, over the fans, over the drivers who step on the podium with him. Obviously, Chesney and Kookaburra who follow him. I think that sees Kookaburra continue to lead the championship, but Jono is definitely going to be much closer than he was before, and this is only going to get more close and more tight, and I'm expecting a little prediction: by the end of the season we're going to have a title fight on our hands, and it's going to be close, and it's going to be tight, and it's going to be exciting. Constella said, "I didn't spin at the start, Lewis spun me, I'm mad." And Luck said, "Relatable." Either way, ladies and gentlemen, it is what it is, and that is how every driver needs to take it away. I have to do some quick Twitch things. There you go. ART Lux said, "Some people raped you." Unlucky on that occasion, but yeah, that is race done. I should have gone through the timings. My apologies, Jenga Boy, for not doing that. Hopefully you'll just be able to go back through the stream and just have a look at the final things from there. ART Lux says fuck you, but no one sees that in chat because I see it before anyone else. And yeah, sure. A lot of people say that to me nowadays, so I'm not exactly the fan favorite I used to be. So oh well. But yeah, either way, ladies and gentlemen, I have been your main commentator, Helix. I think you can hear my voice. It is slightly dead. Commentary was fun, and I think it was a huge improvement from Portugal. I was half dead that race, so glad I could get a redemption this time around Austria. It was a fun time, once again commentating for all you lovely people. Maybe some of you not so lovely, but either way it is what it is. And enjoy Miami, because FP1 just wrapped up, and I'm sure FP2 is not that far away from beginning, so go enjoy F1. I'm probably going to stay up and go watch it, even though I should definitely go to sleep. And yeah, enjoy your nights. Goodbye everyone. Adios. And yeah, I will see you. Actually, we'll have a quick look at the schedule when Discord decides to load. Loading. Discord is loading. We're getting there. Holding. We're nearly there. When we head to Silverstone for round 8 of the Formula 2 Championship, unless in voting it was taken out. Is it taken out? No, it isn't taken out. So yeah, we'll be heading to Silverstone next round for round 8. But yeah, from me, from everyone else, we'll go raid a channel. Maybe not, it doesn't matter. Either way, thank you for watching. Goodbye, adios, peace.